Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you all this morning. I'm Angela Ferrito, and I'm the president of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO. Thanks, Bob. I don't think I have to tell any of you that union power is people power, but I do want to emphasize that union power isn't just about what happens in boardrooms. Union power is all about the conversations that we have with each other, member to member, worker to worker, union family to union family. We know that when we show up and when we come together, we win. We've seen it all across the country with historic contracts, and we've seen it right in our own backyard with more people joining unions today than at any point in the last decade. And as more people become union members, we continue to demonstrate that we have earned our seat at the table. We need to be talking through these conversations to show why we back the candidates we back. We need to be talking about Senator Bob Casey, who has been a consistent supporter for organized labor and a pro-union economic policy. Yes. Because here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we know full well the impacts that strong economic policies can have on working families and everyday Americans. We know that good economic policies lift up labor, and when labor does well, America does well. So we need to come together and make sure that we re-elect Senator Bob Casey because he has always shown up for us. He has always had our backs. I feel like the show is being stolen. Maybe we should see if she has anything to say. She might have something to say. Never too young, never too young. Senator Casey has always been a champion for organized labor. From standing up for striking workers on our picket lines to leading fights to enshrine labor protections into law. He's talked the talk, but more importantly, he has walked the walk. He is a leader with a record of writing and enacting legislation that supports Pennsylvania workers and brings good paying union jobs to our Commonwealth. He is a proud supporter of the PRO Act, which would help protect and expand the fundamental rights of workers in America. He is ensuring that corporations can't subsidize their anti-union activities at taxpayer expense, and he wants to allow workers to deduct their union dues from their taxes. That is a far cry from Senator Casey's opponent, David McCormick. That's right. Who built a multi-million-dollar fortune by selling out American workers, killing and outsourcing hundreds of American jobs. You don't have to look any further than what McCormick did to our teachers and our first responders to know that he doesn't stand with us. Not only did his company mismanage their pensions and retirement funds, David McCormick made sure to line his own pockets while he was decimating their freedom to retire with dignity. And let me tell you, that is not someone any working person or any union member should trust with the future or the futures of our country. Because all of us worked hard to get where we are. All of us have fought for our freedom to retire with dignity. We cannot idly sit by while someone like David McCormick tries to auction our retirements away to the highest bidder. Things like this are why every conversation we have between now and Election Day matters. And that's why today is so important. We need to be talking about it. We need to not only show people who we support by showing up, we need to tell them why we support these candidates. Because let me tell you something. This election is not a done deal. We have a fight on our hands. And it is against a bunch of folks dedicated to tearing down the rights that we have fought so hard to win. So here's what we need to do. We need to talk to our fellow union members, our neighbors, our friends, and make sure that they understand what's at stake. Every conversation we have, every door we knock on, every phone call we make to elect Senator Casey brings us one step closer to passing things like the PRO Act to ensure that more workers have the right to organize and to collectively bargain. And it brings us one step closer to a reality where working families aren't just doing everything that they can to merely get by, but they have the ability to get ahead. So, yes. So thank you all for your time. And now I'm going to pass it over to Spencer Dirth.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Teamsters Local 776. We appreciate your attendance here today. My name is Spencer Dirth, and I've been a Teamster since 2008. The Teamsters support the re-election of our senior senator from Pennsylvania, Bob Casey. To quote President Theodore Roosevelt, "It is not the critic that counts. The man who points out the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. Senator Casey is the man in the arena and not just a spectator." While strongly defending the dignity of working people, he was the original co-sponsor of the PRO Act. Senator Casey proposed the No Tax Breaks for Union Busting Act and is working to ensure all workers get the dignity and respect of a $15 hourly minimum wage. He has a long history of defending the right to organize and protect workers' rights in the workplace with an opportunity to retire with dignity and respect. The strength of Senator Casey is in his actions. He currently sits on the Finance Committee, the Committee of Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, the Select Committee of Intelligence, and the Special Committee on Aging. Where else would you expect the champion of workers to be? Our Scranton-born senator has the working people's issues at heart, in contrast with his opponent in this race. David McCormick's actions show that he's been outside of the arena exploiting workers in situations for his personal gain by moving employment opportunities overseas to exploit workers in other countries. He's been fighting for higher profit margins and fewer opportunities for workers. We need a senator who rewards earning a living and not making a living. We need a senator who will continue to fight for Pennsylvania workers in the arena of Washington, D.C. We need to vote for Senator Bob Casey. With that, welcome Senator Casey.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Well, Spencer, thanks very much for your opening comments. I'm grateful to be here with you and everyone at Local 776 and members of AFSCME who are here as well. So we have Teamsters and AFSCME in the room. So let's hear it first for Teamsters, all right? Let's hear it second for AFSCME. And if there are other union members in this place, let's hear it for them. But I wanted to start by thanking Angela for her comments here today to support my candidacy. But in a larger sense, I want to thank her for her leadership of the men and women of organized labor, the AFL-CIO in Pennsylvania, the proudest, strongest labor organization in the United States of America. And I'm so grateful for that leadership. But Angela, thank you for leading us as not just on days like Labor Day, but every single day of the year to celebrate what working men and women mean, not just to the economy of Pennsylvania, but the economy of our country. When we have stronger unions and more unions, America is stronger economically, our national security is stronger, and those who try to denigrate unions and try to kneecap them like a lot of corporate America and their political sponsors have tried to do, when they try to do that in Washington, they've got to come through me. And I'm going to keep fighting the battle against those who are trying to denigrate unions. So we're going to continue to fight like hell against those efforts. And I know it's been going on for decades now. Corporate America and their political sponsors, their political lapdogs in Washington, over and over again, try to denigrate workers, try to undermine the right to organize. In fact, they would take away the right to organize. If we have a Republican Congress next year, a House and a Senate, and a Republican president, and the same Supreme Court that we're going to have, the right to organize is threatened. The very right to organize established in 1935 with a lot of sweat and blood. People lost their lives to have the right to organize. That right to organize will be taken away by Republicans if they have power again. That's going to happen. We have to stop them from doing that. We're not going to sit down and hold their hands and try to talk about it. We're going to stop them from busting unions. We're going to stop them from taking away the right to organize. That's where they're headed as a party. An extreme right-wing party that took away a 49-year right for women. Their next right they're going to take away is the right to organize a union. Why is it, if that's not their position, why is it that they won't support the Protecting the Right to Organize Act? I'd like to have one Republican in Congress stand up and say they support the PRO Act. How about my opponent? We got media in the back of the room. Ask my opponent whether he supports the PRO Act or not. He doesn't, and he never will support it. Ask my opponent whether he'll support restoring the deduction for union dues and work expenses that obscene Republican tax bill in 2017 ripped away. And they did it on purpose to kick labor right in the gut. That's what they tried to do, and they were successful. So next year, we have a big tax fight, and we're going to have a big tax fight. Here's the choice. It's going to be real simple for the American people. If you want to continue tax policy that gives away the store to the biggest corporations on the planet and all the billionaires and the people that make a couple $100 million a year, or the people that make tens of millions, if you want to continue their tax cuts for those Americans, you can do that. You should vote Republican, because that's where they're going. They want to double down on a tax bill that will explode the deficit by more than $4 trillion. They just did it in 2017. That cost us at least $2 trillion. It exploded the debt in 2017. They want to keep doing it. You know what they want to do? They want to keep spending. Because when you give away the store to big corporations and rich people, you are spending money. You're taking money out of the revenue stream and giving it away to the top. So if that's what folks want, they should vote for my opponent in the other side. But if they want a senator who's going to go to Washington and continue to fight to protect the working men and women of this state and pass the PRO Act and pass a middle-class tax cut, they should vote for me. Because that's what I'm going to do. You know why? You know why those billionaires are in this state right now, paying for most of the ads my opponent has? That billionaire-funded super PAC, which we thought would only be about $30 million. Now it's growing beyond that. It's almost $50 million. And there's some estimates it's going to go a lot higher than that. You know why that super PAC is in Pennsylvania? like they're in no other state, one super PAC set up for one candidate, because they know that I'm against those billionaire tax cuts. I'm telling them, if you re-elect me, I'm voting against your billionaire tax cuts. So you better beat me, because I'm going to defeat you. That's what I'm going to do. The big corporations are mad at me because I had the audacity to raise the question of greedflation and price gouging. You know what? They're going to stay mad at me because I'm going to continue to prosecute the case against price gouging by these huge multinational corporations that are jacking up the cost of food, jacking up the cost of household items, and making working families pay more. We're going to go after them, we're going to investigate them, and we're going to hold them accountable for price gouging. That's what we're going to do. And obviously, they don't need these big corporate tax breaks that they got in 2017. You know, every time we reduce the corporate tax rate by 1 percentage point, $100 billion goes out the window for over the 10-year period. 1 point. So when that tax rate was dropped from 35% to 34%, $100 billion went out the door over the 10-year. And then when they went from 34 to 33, another $100 billion went out the door. So they talk about spending. Give me a break. So they got the big corporate tax breaks. The billionaires did better than they've ever done before after having the tax code rigged over and over again for 40 years. And then in the same bill, they rip away the right of union members to deduct their union dues. That is outrageous. It's disgusting. And we got to stop them from doing that again. But we're not done there. There's also a tax provision that's been around a long time. And it's shameful that this is part of our tax code. These big companies, when they hire a consulting firm or a law firm to bust a union, guess what they get? They get a tax break for that. That's considered, quote, a business expense when you bust a union. So that's another part of the tax code we should change. We should take away the tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations, number one. And number two, we should take away the tax break that they get for busting unions. That's what we should do when we get elected this year. So look, it's a real simple choice here. There's no common ground in this race between my opponent and me when it comes to supporting the men and women of labor. And I'm proud, very proud, of the support that I have from the AFL-CIO across our state and the building trades across our state. The people who are in the trenches every day, making our communities work, moving this Commonwealth forward, those workers support me, not simply because of my record, but because they know what the other guy was doing. While I was fighting for union rights and fighting for working families in Pennsylvania, he was making a lot of money investing in China. He not only invested in Chinese companies, he invested in companies that built the Chinese military. That's what he was doing when he was living up in Connecticut running the biggest hedge fund in the world. When he was in that same hedge fund, he invested in the largest producer of fentanyl in China when he was running that hedge fund. And as you heard earlier, he was outsourcing jobs when he was here in Pennsylvania as a CEO. So I think people know the difference between my record and his record. But it's going to become more clear by the end of this race. Take my word for it. It'll be very clear by the end of this race. They also know the difference between what we've been doing with our lives the last decade or so. He was running the biggest hedge fund in the world, and he made a lot of money. And he's telling the people of Pennsylvania over and over again that he was living in Pennsylvania in 2022, in 2023, until the Associated Press wrote a story in August of 2023 where they said he's living in Connecticut. Why would you lie to the people that you seek to represent? You're asking to represent every citizen of Pennsylvania. Why would you lie to them about where you live, about something that basic about where you live? And I think the people of this state know the difference between what I stand for and what I've been doing and what my opponent stands for. But on this day, when we're talking about labor and the men and women of labor, there is no comparison between our records. And we have to make a fundamental choice. We can elect someone who's going to be working every day in Washington for big corporations and rich people, Hell, he even said he wanted to repeal the infrastructure law. The infrastructure law, which has brought record federal investment. We have never seen the kind of record federal investment in roads and bridges and water systems and high-speed internet. Every single county in the state has benefited. I don't care if it's the most Republican county in the state. It's benefiting because I voted for the infrastructure bill. I delivered that bill to the people of Pennsylvania. But he's against it. He's against it. He's even against the legislation that allowed Medicare to negotiate for lower drug prices, right? The same legislation that capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. He wants to repeal that legislation. The same bill that in January will cap all out-of-pocket costs at $2,000 for Medicare Part D beneficiaries, just like we already capped the cost of insulin for those Americans. Now, I want to do more. I think we should cap the insulin for at $35 a month for everybody who needs it. Yeah. Grow the number beyond seniors, right? We should cap out-of-pocket costs for everybody at $2,000, in addition to putting it in law as of January for seniors. But he wants to repeal that bill. So that's another big difference. I want to continue to build on what I brought to this state when we invested in infrastructure. In this county alone, there's like $9 million for high-speed internet in Cumberland County alone. Go to every county. I was in Fulton County a couple months ago, the most Republican county in the state. They're getting $7.5 million for high-speed internet because of my vote. He wants to repeal that. So I guess he believes that all the dollars that came to the state in the infrastructure bill, in the American Rescue Plan, where we lifted up families in the grip of the pandemic, when we lifted up communities, I guess he thinks all of that should have been zero. That all those communities and all those families deserved zero because that's his ideological position. And now I guess he thinks that seniors should not have a cap on insulin at $35 a month. I think these positions are disqualifying for a Pennsylvania senator. One of the oldest states in the country, a country that values those who fought our wars, who worked in our factories, who built the strongest economy in the world, who were scientists and innovators and engineers. And all they're asking for in the twilight of their lives is that they have a measure of retirement security, that they have a little bit of help paying for their prescription drug costs. We delivered that, and they're not going to rip it away. We're going to stop them from repealing that law that gave seniors a break on their prescription drugs. So the choice is really clear. The only thing that's left in this campaign is what we all do together, all of our work. Everyone in this room is here because you love our country. Everyone in this room is here because you want to move our country forward. But we got to keep working. I know some people say to me, you know what? I hear a lot about people knocking on doors. We got tens of thousands of people knocking on doors across the state. That's great. But they say, I can't knock on doors for different reasons. I want to do something else. People are writing postcards. They're making phone calls. They're texting their friends and neighbors. They're engaging people in any way they can to tell them to vote this year, to get out and vote like your life depended upon it. And I think that's what's going to make the difference. Your work, your labor, the men and women of organized labor coming together, mobilizing to move our Commonwealth forward and to move our country forward. So I think I'll end with what labor taught me a long time ago when I was a young candidate. That great line from the men and women of organized labor. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and organize. Thanks, everybody.